Welcome in, everyone, to the Sunday Nighter on the Talkin Tide podcast on the Reier on YouTube channel. I'm Chase Goodbread, sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News, joined by Travis Reier. Be sure to check out Reier on YouTube. Like it, subscribe to it, get those notifications. Great content there, as always, at Reier on YouTube. Heck of a breakdown tonight for you on this Alabama home loss to Oklahoma, 23-21. The final score. Very frustrating game, obviously, for Alabama on several fronts. Dismal performance offensively, at least from the turnover standpoint, and that was really the difference in the game. Travis, the defense played phenomenally well, I thought, for Alabama, but you give it away. You're minus 3 in that turnover column, and that's going to tell the tale just about every time.
Yeah, and all of them resulted pretty much in short fields for Oklahoma. And that's how you end up with just 212 yards and 23 total points. And what's worse than short fields, Chase? How about no fields? And that's what you got with the pick six. So you lose a game by 2 to a quality opponent and you give up a non-offensive touchdown. That's usually enough in and of itself. But when you give up a not in a 2-point game and you give up multiple turnovers that result in short fields and a punt return that results in a short field. In some ways, it's sort of amazing that this was just a 2-point game. And as to your point, give a lot of credit for that to Kane Womack and his defense.
Yeah, I think there was a point in the season, Travis, where you and I both, certainly me, I shouldn't speak for you. I felt like the offense was trending in a much better direction than the defense, but last couple weeks, certainly LSU and this Oklahoma game, it's been the defense that's outplayed the offense on the whole.
They've been put under the gun in a lot of ways by this offense. If anything, I will say this, I agree with Kalen DeBoer post-game. I know this raised some eyebrows, I think, when he said it, that there was actually some improvement on the offensive side of the ball in terms of the run game. Look, they weren't going to run it for 200 yards against this Oklahoma defense. We understood that. They ran it better than I thought they would. Now, if you'd have told me before the game Daniel Hill was going to have 20 touches between runs and catches, I would have thought that would have boded extremely well for this Alabama offense. So I liked some of the things I saw. We had some changes there to that offensive line with Wilkin Formby at right guard and Michael Carroll at right tackle. Total offense, those numbers look good. Alabama runs 75 plays in the game. Oklahoma just runs 51. But it's some of those hidden yards, like return yards, 87-yard interception return, explosive play on a punt return by Satania. It proves once again that the stats on the surface all the time aren't exactly as truthful as you might think.
No, Oklahoma built 2 double-digit leads early, right? They get out 10-0, then they get out 17-7. Alabama able to chip away at both of those leads in the first half, down 17-14 at the break. Interested to hear your thoughts on the field goal attempt by Connor Talty before the half, Travis, that got tipped by an Oklahoma defender who leaped over the long snapper and got a piece of that ball. The snap was high. Talty clearly not happy with the high snap. I thought the hold was really good. You're the kicking expert here. What were your thoughts on all that?
I've talked about it a little bit on the channel since the game, but it's the same for me. It was a high snap. And the operation, really, the last couple of weeks at least, hasn't been great. Snap to hold to kick. But it didn't throw off the timing at all. I think it definitely threw Connor Talty off, but that can't throw you off as a kicker at that level. If the timing's still good and the ball is set cleanly and you got a great spot, Dowd did a nice job with that high and hot. It wasn't just high, it was hot. So he did a nice job getting it down. Everything was what it needed to be ultimately for Talty to do his job. He didn't do his job. And I know we can talk about the leaping over the line and discrepancies and how that rule reads. Maybe if he leaps between the 2 players and not directly over a player, it's not illegal. Bottom line is 36-yard field goal. inside 40, those are the ones you got to make. You know, you give guys like Oklahoma's kicker a lot of credit. The guy is automatic from just about everywhere. He made another 50-plus yarder in the game Saturday night, but he also makes those inside 40 kicks. And a lot of times, the ones you miss from inside 40 get you beat more than the ones that you make over 50 win games. So, you know, that was another area where Alabama was in the negatives too much. And ultimately, as I've said here before too, every kick doesn't have to be a big kick. It doesn't have to be an end of game kick to be a big kick. In retrospect, you can miss a kick in the first quarter, second, whenever,
right?
And it can prove big by the end of the game.
2-point game. Every field goal is big in a 2-point game. If I'm reading you right, and if I'm wrong, tell me. But it sounds to me like your thought was Talty's got to have a little more faith in the holder, and maybe you saw some unnecessary hesitation.
There wasn't any hesitation. I think the snap did affect him. Maybe the leaper affected him. Those things as a kicker, that's not where your focus should be. Your focus should be on the spot where the ball's going to go, and maybe peripherally.
But you don't think Talty was late?
No, it did not. From what I saw, it did not cause him to reset. It did not cause him to reroute. You know, you'll see some snaps and holds that are so bad, a kicker will already be on his route and have to stop and then start again. That's when it is a problem. If the kicker doesn't have to reset or reroute on the way to the ball, on the way to the spot to get the kick out of there, then that's on the kicker at that point. Again, the way I always did it and the way I've taught it and the way I've heard people who are much more accomplished in that area than I am is your focus is where the spot is. You know, that's wherever your holder has that hand down, that offhand there on the ground, that's where the focus is. Now, peripherally, you'll see the snap because that kind of signals your start. You know, you've got to kind of start before the ball hits your holder's hands to get it off in the requisite time that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, if the spot's good and everything's good, you got to make a kick from 36 yards. He made one against LSU in the fourth quarter last week that was, in terms of laces and holds, it was rough. It's about as bad as it gets. And he bombed it. I mean, he drilled it. So if you can make that kick, then you got to make the one he missed on Saturday.
Right. We'll stay on, as long as we're on special teams, we'll stay there. Definitely that part of the game was big in OU's favor. You mentioned the punt return early in the game that set up, I think, 3 points for the Sooners early. That was certainly a factor. Ryan Williams fumbling a punt return. This, by the way, at least to my rough and hazy recollection, first time this year I've seen Alabama employ the two returner look.
Yeah.
What do you think the strategy there was? Because I didn't get it.
I think it was to maybe steal some yards, maybe to do what Oklahoma did with Satania on his first return. You know, kind of help out your offense because your offense has been struggling relative to the standard that they established after the Florida State game and for about a 6-7 game stretch after that. And Ryan's a playmaker, and he's done it before. He's done it well before, but it definitely was different. And the first rule, as you know, in the return game is possession. No matter what, at the end of it, you want to have possession, even if it's a fair catch.
Yeah.
And I don't really fault Ryan for fighting and trying to really turn it into something big. But how many times have you seen it, though? You know, a return guy trying to go basically 1 on 7 or 8 to pop one, and the ball comes out. And look, Oklahoma from the start, and I know there's been a lot of talk about Ty's struggles with ball security, and it's justifiable at this point. But I think that was preached team wide with Alabama, offensively, special teams. Go for the football, punch the ball out. And it was successful on really 4 occasions, because Daniel Hill, he had one too. Alabama was very fortunate on that one. Actually got the benefit of review, right?
Right.
And
Lots of Brooks for that recovery that tumbled downfield. Yeah.
And then proceed to throw a pick six right after that. So even when Alabama had good fortune in terms of a potential takeaway or turnover scenario, they still followed it up with another one.
Let's fast forward to the last few minutes, which points us to another big special teams for OU, a punt that they downed at about the 5-yard line of Alabama that put 95 yards in front of Ty Simpson for what turned out to be Alabama's last possession. A lot of criticism I've seen from fans about the amount of time that came off the clock just to move the football, not even into field goal range yet. Some people felt like, hey, the defense was playing so well, go 2 minute, even though it's not 2 minutes left, and you'll end up with 2 possessions, 2 cracks instead of 1 because you played good enough defense to get the ball back again. Instead, Alabama kind of takes the air out of it, plodding down the field, and we all know how that ended.
I didn't mind that. I thought it was more problematic against South Carolina. They did the same thing against South Carolina. They took the whole fourth quarter clock, right?
Right. Yeah.
And they were down 8.
Yeah.
They didn't just need to get in the end zone. They had to get the 2-point conversion also. And they needed every bit of it. What was that? 8.5-minute drive? Something like that?
Struggled a lot more on defense in that one, though.
Yeah, that's true. But if you can tell me I can take the whole fourth quarter clock and I'm only down 2 and I can kick a field goal and win this thing, I'm good with taking the whole fourth quarter clock. You run the defense out there. I know you're right. The defense had been good, but you're still taking a pretty good risk if you're thinking you're going to get it back with an offense that can run the quarterback. And Alabama did a pretty good job against John Mateer. Had the 1 touchdown run that was big on a short field that was presented to this Alabama defense. So I didn't really have a problem with the clock. And that's also why the missed field goal too earlier was big. If you make that field goal and you're up in the game, then that's what you're trying to do in the fourth quarter, is take the clock there. Now, the game could have played out differently. We'll never know. But it does make you wonder.
It does. I'm looking at Alabama took over with 7:14 left in the game from their own 6-yard line. They go 13 plays, 42 yards. I'm all right with playing for 1 possession there to win it, but I do think that to be sitting where Alabama was with only 50 seconds left on the clock, they needed to have a little bit more urgency if for no other reason than you'd much rather just stick the thing in the end zone to win it than have to go with another field goal that you may or may not hit with Connor Talty. Get your ass down the field with more time on the clock. They were at that point in the game, even if they happen to convert at 4th and 6, there's still a good chance that the best they could do on that drive is a field goal attempt based on the amount of time left.
Yeah, I agree. That wasn't optimum. And Benjamin makes a good point here in the show chat, which you're more than welcome to jump into. He says Bama's 2-minute drill has been good all year. I think that's Bama's bread and butter. And they know it very well. So there's certainly some justification to that approach. I think they were trying to be as sure as they could be in going against that Oklahoma defense. I think Ty Simpson deserves a lot of credit for a lot of the calls and checks that he's making, but a lot of this stuff is still coming from up top. If you watch pre-snap, they get up there and they try to get a look first and foremost at what they're going to get in terms of alignment, coverage, those type of things. And they still look over. And that's where Grubb is still working down to the sideline. So I think they were just trying to take a very measured approach and be sure of themselves. It worked against South Carolina. Didn't work against Oklahoma.
4 sacks of Ty Simpson. Pass protection an issue. Also, obviously, Ty Simpson holding the ball a little bit too long in certain situations. Kalen DeBoer mentioned that at the end of the game. He's got to get rid of it and throw it away in some certain spots. DeBoer said, you gotta learn to live with a punt here and there. as badly as Simpson wants to stay on the field on third down. Oklahoma blitzed a lot more in the second half than they did in the first half. And, to me, defensively, I felt like OU was kind of daring Alabama to throw deep because not only were they coming with the blitz, but they were playing tight on a lot of short stuff, which means when Simpson throws hot on a blitz, they're going to be all over that too. And if that's going to be Auburn's copycat plan, then Ryan Grubb's got to have an answer for that.
I think ultimately that would be Josh Cuevas, right? That's what they would like to do. But Brent Venables had a couple of pressures where he accounted for Josh Cuevas. Not all the time. Cuevas had a really nice game. I mean, the Grubb dialed it up one time where he got him in the end zone untouched, right?
Yeah.
On a nice hookup. But they also had a couple of it where they brought pressure into that same side. They doubled the hot one time with Cuevas. That was the corner cat that got home. Daniel Hill on the pickup. It didn't really happen. But they doubled the hot and got, I think, Ty away from it, and he ends up taking the sack.
Yeah.
That little bit of hesitation is all it takes if your back doesn't stone that blitzer. And then, the 87-yard touchdown return, they spun down a safety and jumped it right there in the middle of the field after they brought a guy pretty well clean. And that was to me, that was really well done. I think that may have just been a 4-man pressure, really, or 4-man pass rush. It was kind of simulated pressure. They brought the backer through the A gap. Formby and Carroll take the two guys that are basically head up them. And then on the left side, you've got Brailsford, the guard, and your left tackle taking one guy. So you got 3 guys taking one, and then you got 3 against 2 on the other side. That brought the pressure, and then Ty had to get rid of it. It's tough for Ty because earlier in the season, what did we say about him? He's given up on some stuff, right? He's antsy. He's not staying in there. We even heard Ryan Grubb say it, essentially. And then when he does stand in there and try to wait and let it happen and let things open up, and it doesn't work out so well, now he's got to speed it up. He's got to get rid of the ball. It's the toughest position on the field for a reason. And, Oklahoma's defense can sort of reinforce that.
Yeah, Kip Lewis has been a real thorn in Alabama's side for 2 years now. He got the pick 6 on Jalen Milroe last year that pretty much broke Alabama's back in Norman. Then he comes to Tuscaloosa, got 2 sacks out of that Oklahoma pressure that came. He had an outstanding game, but a lot of trouble for Alabama. More movement on that offensive line. Travis Formby goes the distance at a guard position. So that's something we've seen a little bit of Formby at guard this year, but certainly not a full gamer from him at guard. So that was kind of
Are you at the point where it's like, go with this? Just go with Formby at guard, Carroll at tackle. You still want to rotate at left guard, whatever. Do that. But 10 games in, and you got the biggest game of your era under Kalen DeBoer coming up in 2 Saturdays. Because if you don't beat Auburn, it's essentially last year all over again, right?
I wrote that. Yeah, it's 2023 all over again.
It's 2024. But
I'm thinking 3 just because when they went down there in 23, they had the SEC championship on the line, they had the CFP on the line, and they took that miracle.
But last year it won't be game for game similar like the Iron Bowl. But they went to Norman that way last year against a bad Oklahoma team.
Yeah,
with everything on the line in November. And they had already lost to a 6-loss team in Vanderbilt. They had lost to Tennessee, which Tennessee a year ago, to me, is Oklahoma this year, right? Oklahoma's looking like it could be a 10-2 team that gets into the college football playoff. Tennessee was a 10-2 team last year that beat Alabama, got into the college football playoff. But if you lose to Auburn, you already, Florida State, I think about the best Florida State's going to do is 6-6. You've lost to a 6-6, And if you lose to Auburn, the best Auburn's, I think, going to do is 6-6.
Right.
So it'll be just like last year. But to your
Yeah.
point, 2023 is applicable too. But win for win almost a year ago and win for win this year and loss for loss, 9-3 will look a lot like the 9-3 from a year ago. And if you lose to 2 6-6s again, you shouldn't be in the college football playoff at 9-3.
And my suspicion is that a 3-loss that Alabama can book a low end bowl again if they lose to Auburn. I don't see them getting in the playoff. Maybe it could happen. The only difference here, Travis, that's worth mentioning, although it's not something that I trust until I see it with my own eyes, is we got that off-season pledge from the CFP that the selection committee was going to take strength of schedule seriously from now on. And Alabama, as of right now, is sitting on the 6th toughest schedule in the country per ESPN. So,
I'm with you though.
Show me.
Show
me first.
I'm from Missouri on that one. The show me state.
Right.
And speaking of Missouri, I mean, they get Oklahoma this weekend. How's Oklahoma going to respond to this win? Now, it's the point being there's a lot of football left to be played by other teams. Oklahoma still got Missouri and LSU. Should win those games. I think both are in Norman.
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M for a half looked like Kevin Sumlin November Texas A&M.
What in the world? Yeah.
Down 30-3. Now, second half, they look like a legit national title contender, but it sort of reestablished that sort of belief that crazy things can happen as you get deeper and deeper into November.
It's wild. Kirby Smart paddled Sarkisian again, so that kind of puts Texas out of the mix. At least I think for the CFP.
But
right?
they could be Texas A&M's Auburn. What Auburn could be to Alabama, they still could be that for A&M on that Friday night after Thanksgiving. We'll see.
Alabama right now, in most scenarios, a win gets them to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much question about that. Now, and another question becomes,
do you want to go to Atlanta?
Do you want to go to Atlanta for the? Yeah, and no doubt about that. I've written. I think it's time to dump conference championship games. If they expand this thing to 16, or God, then it's really time to get rid of conference championship games.
But that money. I don't. ESPN's response to that will be, now, guys, let's not get rash here. Let's talk this through. They'll say, guys.
What's wrong with a national championship game on February 1st, guys? We can do that. Sure.
Yeah. Well, guys, we took the time to do the accounting on the elimination of the championship games, and here's what the check will look like. Okay, we're good with them.
Yeah.
Forget I ever said that.
Yeah. Never mind. Never mind.
They'll get the Dan, they'll get the Big Dan treatment with that branch. They start talking about, I don't get it, Big Greg.
All this advanced tutorial.
Off the rails we go with our brother.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Love it. And then there's always beat Auburn, losing the SEC championship game. Now you caught that third loss, but it's a different loss than losing to Auburn. And how does the committee treat that?
I still think in a crazy way, you will be better off beating Auburn. And then if you lose, than if you had beaten Oklahoma, lost Auburn, and followed it right up with an SEC championship game loss. And probably the eye test comes into that type of situation too with Atlanta. I mean, if you lose to Auburn and you go to Atlanta and get smoked, that could be problematic. But there's the thing is with all this, you get so in this vacuum of just Alabama and you forget there is so much more out there for other teams in this mix, and still so much that can happen between this Saturday and the end of conference championship Saturday. Texas
A&M plays into that. You got the Egg Bowl, right? Which is going to play into that a little bit. So
in
a lot can
Starkville.
happen.
In
Starkville they go. Florida gave Ole Miss
That's
a
what I'm
bit of a
saying.
scare
Florida
for a
gave them all they
while.
wanted in Oxford.
24-20 that thing was second half.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, you're right. Whole lot of football left to be played. Going to be a lot of fun. The conference came out and said that mathematically nobody can clinch. Not even Texas A&M can clinch in week 13.
Yeah.
So it'll be week 14 before anybody knows anything about it.
Well, Georgia's going to be sitting around the next 2 weeks.
Right.
They're done, right? They've got Tech on the final weekend, which could be big for the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it doesn't mean they don't have a big game left out there, but it's Tech. It's non-con. It's pretty crazy that way. And then, you've got some teams that got one conference game left, like Alabama, Auburn. And then you've got, some teams that have two, like Oklahoma, these next 2 weekends, Missouri and LSU.
Yep. Going to be fun. Going to be wild last couple of weeks. Eastern Illinois coming up next week for Alabama home game.
Isn't that Tony Romo's alma mater? Eastern Illinois, I think.
I'd have to take you. I'm pretty good with
let me see.
with where a lot of these guys matriculated, but you got me on that one. I can't tell you where Tony Romo went to school. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yes, Tony Romo, Eastern Illinois.
There you go. Good pull there. Good pull.
Yeah. I think Western Illinois is my favorite nickname, though. The two directionals. I think Western Illinois the Leathernecks, I think.
You like that?
Yeah. I like that. But anyway, back to the football. Enough of that.
Back to football. The Talkin Tide podcast on the Reier on YouTube channel rolling on. We want to thank our listeners and viewers as always. Encourage you to contribute to Parker Covers Alabama, a nonprofit 501c3 supporting wheelchaired residents of the state of Alabama. You can go to parkercoversalabama.com. Contribute if you can. It's a great charity that we launched here in the last couple months, really about the beginning of the football season. Looking forward to supporting some wheelchaired residents of the state as soon as we possibly can. So contribute if you can. The Talkin Tide podcast on the Reier on YouTube channel rolling on. Travis, looking at some scores around the league from this past week. Let's start with Georgia hammering Texas. It took them a while, right? It was a tight game going into that fourth quarter, 14-10 after 3 quarters. Dogs pull away. Texas offense never really got going, and that was that. Third loss of the year for your Longhorns.
Yeah, some of those easy explosives for Arch and that Texas offense against defenses like Mississippi State and some of the teams they had seen, Vanderbilt having another great year, but still athletically not a match really for Texas. Quick throws to the perimeter, get a block. A guy like Wingo goes 75. That wasn't going to happen as much against Georgia. So Texas was going to have to earn it. Boy, Georgia playing its best football at the absolute right time of the year. They are playing to their standard. They are playing to their culture and exactly what Kirby wants to see right now.
Just plodding along, win after win after win. I mean, Alabama obviously got them in Athens, but they're sitting at 9-1. Like you mentioned, they're done in the league at 7-1 in SEC play. Still could get a tussle from Georgia Tech. That'll be a fun one.
That's in Atlanta, I think, too. So
yeah,
that'll maybe ramp it up a little bit. And I would never count Haynes King out. I mean, you've got all kinds of Haynes King quarterbacks, it feels like, in college football this year. I think John Mateer's a Haynes King type. I think Gunnar Stockton is a Haynes King type. Gunnar Stockton's really stepped up his play, though, for the Dogs. It seems like Georgia, Alabama, he was not very good in that game. Just didn't seem very confident in that game. But since then, he has kind of cut it loose, and they're just getting better and better. And that's without one of their very best wide receivers on the field, too.
We already kind of touched on Texas A&M with that huge comeback, 31-30 against South Carolina. Just a total collapse by the Gamecocks in the second half. Ole Miss over Florida, 34-24. Kawan Lacey, Travis, 31 for 224, 3 touchdowns on the ground, just ran all over the Gators. Chambliss threw for 301. So just between Lacey's rushing and Chambliss's passing, that was 525 yards.
Kewan Lacey not getting enough love, even in the conference, even within the conference. I don't think he is, because you've had Ahmad Hardy have just a monster year. He had a crazy game against Mississippi State, 300 rushing yards for Ahmad Hardy on Saturday. But, Kewan goes for nearly 250. So I would think those are your two first-team All-SEC running backs.
300 yards. I mean, talk about
nuts.
That's
going to be fun to watch this week, is Hardy against that OU defense.
Yeah.
And then they're saying Bo Prabula might be back from his injury. That's a tough one to come back on against that OU defense, but be a lot of fun watching some of those collisions with Hardy and that OU defense. The problem he might have against that OU defense is OU can do a good job of hitting you before you get going. But you know what? Daniel Hill's stylistically kind of like Ahmad Hardy. And he had some success against that OU defense. We'll see if R. Mason Thomas might be back this week for OU too.
Big time pass rusher for the Sooners, was not able to go for OU. Might have been a hell of a lot worse for Alabama's pass production.
That's what I'm saying.
Thomas had gone.
If you're Alabama, you could not complain about the setup. Home game, no R. Mason Thomas had another defensive lineman that's important to them, not able to go. That's what makes it especially frustrating. It was set up pretty good for the Crimson Tide.
Bobby Petrino drops another conference game, Travis, for Arkansas. LSU wins at home 23-22. Oh, Bobby. It's been a rough interim stretch for Mr. Neck Brace.
I tried to get Bobby that job full time. I really did.
Yeah.
I mean, I was driving that chopper. This time Bobby was on the back and I was driving the chopper. And now I've got the neck brace. I've got the neck brace and the Sugar Bowl hat on after I tried to get Bobby that chopper crashed and I had him on the back.
Pulling up this Arkansas schedule right now. They got 2 more games in the league. They go to Austin next week to take on Texas. I would think that would be an L. And then, of course, they get Missouri at home to close out the year.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's definitely going outside right now for that next hire. And who knows what direction that's going. It feels like maybe they've been played a little bit by James Franklin. I think Virginia Tech may end up feeling that way. Who knows how that's going to turn out for Arkansas in terms of its next head coach.
All right, that is going to do it for us here on the Talkin Tide podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Sunday Nighter. Bring you back on Wednesday, midweek. We will break down Alabama's upcoming game against Eastern Illinois. Until then, for Travis Reier, I'm Chase Goodbread, sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News, and we'll talk to you next time on Talkin Tide right here on the Reier on YouTube channel.